A new announcement from the Vatican is once again raising questions about whether or not Pope Francis will soon step down as a leader of the Catholic Church.
Pope Francis and his recent health struggles have fueled rumors that he might be planning to retire.
Pope Francis has just made a revelation that shocked the Vatican. Breaking a centuries-old tradition, he disclosed the names of potential successors to the papacy, a move that caught the Catholic world off guard. While the Pope has won hearts for his reforms and progressive leadership. Since his election in 2013, he is now considering resigning due to health concerns.
We have shocking new revelations this morning about Pope Francis's health. In a new interview, he reveals that he has already written a resignation letter in case medical issues leave him unable to perform his duties.
As the Church prepares for an eventual transition, the question arises: who will be the next Pope? And what will their leadership mean for the future of the Catholic Church? Join us as we discuss the groundbreaking revelation and its implications for the global Catholic Church. The big revelation from Pope Francis. The Catholic Church traditionally keeps the identity of the next pope uncertain until the decision is official. Electing a pope occurs in a conclave, where cardinals meet secretly to vote on the successor to St. Peter. They keep it secret to preserve the integrity and solemnity of the decision, but in a move that has left the Catholic community completely speechless, Pope Francis broke this tradition by revealing his successors in line. According to Catholic watchers, Pope Francis has left an indelible mark on the Church and the global community since his election in 2013. As the first pope from the Americas and the first Jesuit to occupy the papal office, his tenure includes significant reforms, bold stances on social justice issues, and a pastoral approach to leadership. Media reports suggest he may tender his resignation during the next cardinal. The reason why the Pope decided to break from the age-long Catholic tradition is not what you think. Keep watching to find out.
The 85-year-old Francis stressed that he hadn't thought about resigning until now.
Looking back at the beginning of his papacy, Pope Francis demonstrated a willingness to challenge conventions. He ignored the traditional papal lifestyle, living in the modest Casa Santa Marta guest house, rather than the apostolic palace. This choice demonstrates his commitment to humility and accessibility, which have defined his leadership style. Pope Francis also focuses on social justice and mercy. His messages, including Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, have addressed pressing global issues such as environmental degradation, economic inequality, and the need for universal love. These documents reinforce the Church's moral stance on these issues and positioned it as a vocal advocate for the oppressed and the planet. Unfortunately, in recent years, Pope Francis's health has become a subject of increasing concern. He has faced several physical challenges, including a surgery in 2021 to address diverticulitis and persistent issues with his knee that often require him to use a wheelchair. While he has maintained a busy schedule, it is evident that he's struggling with health issues, and some are beginning to doubt his ability to continue leading the Church effectively. Surprisingly, the Pope has not shied away from discussing the possibility of resignation. In interviews, he has spoken about the precedent set by Pope Benedict XVI, who stepped down in 2013, citing health reasons.
The Vatican has announced the death of Pope Benedict XVI at the age of 95. His health had been worsening in recent weeks.
Francis has acknowledged that resignation could be a valid option should he feel unable to fulfill his duties. These statements, coupled with his pragmatic approach to leadership, suggest that he would prioritize the Church's needs over personal considerations. One of Pope Francis's most important contributions to the Catholic Church has been his efforts to reform its governance and address long-standing issues. He established the Council of Cardinals early in his papacy to advise him on needed reforms. Following the committee's recommendations, he launched the Predicate Evangelium, a new apostolic constitution to modernize church practices. One of the biggest problems facing the church before his papacy was allegations of abuse, and what he did to address it will blow your mind. Francis acknowledged that the church failed at stopping clerical and he immediately took measures to increase accountability. During his 2019 summit on the protection of minors, he brought together bishops from around the world to confront this crisis, signaling a commitment to transparency and justice. Pope Francis also engages with diverse audiences and builds bridges across divides. He has reached out to marginalized groups, including the gender minority community, divorced Catholics, and those living in poverty.
Now, all of that information was released as the Vatican was in the middle of a 4-day summit on.
Yeah, but Croft also says he's really disappointed that more did not come out of it.
His famous declaration, "Who am I to judge?" regarding the choices of priests, marked a shift towards a more inclusive and compassionate church. Francis has also prioritized interfaith dialogue, meeting with Islam, Judaism, and other faith leaders to promote mutual understanding and cooperation. During his historic trip to Iraq in 2021, he spoke about peace and reconciliation in regions marked by religious conflict. But the prospect of his looming resignation raises many questions about the future of the Catholic Church. His resignation would mirror the precedent set by Benedict XVI, further normalizing the idea of papal retirement. But it would also mark the end of an era defined by tradition and reform. Francis's potential departure comes when the Church faces several challenges, including declining membership in the West, internal divisions, and the need to address global issues such as climate change, wars, poverty, and social inequality. The next pope will inherit not only these challenges, but also the responsibility of continuing the reforms initiated by Francis while meeting the expectations of a diverse and global Catholic community. Now, we have come to the most interesting part of this video. Who will be the next pope? Keep watching out.
This morning, we are counting down to the conclave, the secret voting process to elect the next pope, just hours away now, and the world is watching.
The next pope and their visions. As Pope Francis's tenure as leader of the Catholic Church nears its conclusion, attention shifts to those who might succeed him. Usually, the next pope is selected by a college of cardinals. The college includes several prominent figures widely considered to be frontrunners. Sources close to Pope Francis revealed that he mentioned 3 potential names: Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, Cardinal Pietro Parolin of Italy, and Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana. How likely are the chances of each of these men? Let's start with Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, also called the Asian Francis. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle embodies humility, compassion, and a deep commitment to the marginalized. Born in Manila, Philippines in 1957, Tagle's upbringing in a devout Catholic family shaped his early vocation. Ordained in 1982, he gained recognition for his theological brilliance and ability to connect with ordinary people. Tagle's work in pastoral ministry and his academic contributions, particularly at the Catholic University of America, laid the foundation for his growth within the church hierarchy.
Pope Francis has appointed Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle the new head of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples. The 62-year-old Filipino cardinal succeeds Cardinal Fernando Filoni, who led the Vatican department for 8 years.
While he was the Archbishop of Manila, Tagle demonstrated his ability to address pressing social issues. He became a vocal advocate for low-income people, denouncing corruption, inequality, and human rights abuses in the Philippines. His involvement in global Catholic initiatives, such as his leadership in Caritas Internationalis, shows his commitment to international development and social justice. As a potential successor to Pope Francis, Tagle's vision for the Church aligns closely with the current pontiff. He always canvassed for inclusivity, pastoral care, and a focus on the peripheries of society. His charismatic and approachable attitude makes him the favorite candidate among younger Catholics. According to Catholic watchers, he would be a symbol of hope for a church striving to remain relevant in a rapidly changing world. But critics argue that his young age and lack of experience may affect his chances of winning over the Catholic bureaucrats during voting. If you consider Tagle a brilliant candidate, the next name on this list will leave you completely shocked. We are talking about Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the diplomatic strategist. Pietro Parolin is currently the Vatican Secretary of State. He is widely regarded as one of the most influential figures in the Church today.
Cardinal Pietro Parolin ordained these 29 Opus Dei priests in a basilica in Rome. Before beginning the celebration, they read a letter Pope Francis had sent them for the ceremony.
Born in Chiaven, Italy, in 1955, Parolin's path to the cardinalate was born out of his exceptional skills as a diplomat and administrator. Ordained in 1980, he quickly rose through the Holy See's diplomatic service ranks, serving in Nigeria, Mexico, and Venezuela. His expertise in international relations and fluency in multiple languages have earned him respect on the global stage. Parolin's tenure as Secretary of State under Pope Francis has achieved significant diplomatic success. Analysts believe he played a central role in facilitating the historic rapprochement between the United States and Cuba, and has been a key figure in the Vatican's dialogue with China. Parolin's pragmatic approach to diplomacy shows that he deeply understands the geopolitical realities facing the Church, particularly in regions where religious freedom is under threat. As a potential pope, Parolin represents continuity and stability. His experience within the Roman Curia positions him as a candidate capable of managing the Vatican. Parolin's vision for the Church likely involves strengthening its global influence through diplomacy, promoting interfaith dialogue, and addressing pressing issues such as climate change and migration. But some people believe he is too close to the Vatican establishment and would not bring the much-desired reform needed. Such people believe more in the papacy of Cardinal Peter Turkson.
Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana, as I mentioned, he took the helm of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace in 2009. His work is focused heavily on promoting Pope Benedict XVI's calls for more carefully regulated international markets, and
who is also regarded as part of the Global South. Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana has long been a prominent advocate for the Global South within the Catholic Church. Born in 1948 in Nsutawasa, Ghana, Turkson dedicated his early life to community and faith. After his ordination in 1975, he pursued advanced studies in Rome, earning a doctorate in sacred scripture. Turkson's academic background and pastoral experience contributed to his appointment as Archbishop of Cape Coast in 1992. Turkson's elevation to the cardinalate in 2003 under Pope John Paul II signaled recognition of his leadership qualities and his potential to represent the growing Catholic populations in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. As president of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, and later as head of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development, Turkson championed issues such as economic justice, environmental sustainability, and peace building. Turkson's vision for the Church reflects a strong commitment to social justice and the empowerment of marginalized communities. He has been an outspoken critic of economic inequality, environmental degradation, and the exploitation of developing nations. His leadership in drafting Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si shows his dedication to environmental stewardship.
Laudato Si, or Praised Be You, tackles the issues of global warming, pollution, and even species extinction. Cardinal Peter Turkson of the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace presented the new encyclical on Thursday.
As a papal contender, Turkson represents a historic opportunity for the Church to embrace its growing diversity. His election would symbolize a shift towards the Global South, affirming the Church's commitment to its expanding base in Africa and beyond. But some critics believe that he lacks administrative skills and the ability to manage the complex structures within the Vatican. The three candidates have different leadership styles and priorities. Tagle's pastoral approach is humility, emotional intelligence, and a focus on marginalized communities. Parolin's diplomatic and administrative skills show him as a pragmatic leader and international relations expert. Turkson stands for social justice and environmental sustainability. He's also hoping for the Global South to take over the papacy. While their differences show the diversity within the College of Cardinals, these candidates also share common challenges. Each would need to address the Church's internal divisions, the ongoing abuse crisis, and the declining influence of religion in secular societies. Their ability to manage these issues will depend on their strengths and capacity to build consensus within the Vatican and the global Catholic community. The election of the next Pope will have a lot of implications for the direction of the Catholic Church in the 21st century.
The Cardinals are getting ready, the secret ritual hours away, for the first vote for a new pope.
A Tagle papacy would likely continue Pope Francis's emphasis on pastoral care and outreach to the peripheries, appealing to younger Catholics and those in developing regions. Parolin's leadership would prioritize diplomacy and institutional stability, potentially strengthening the Church's global influence through strategic partnerships. Turkson's election would represent a bold step towards inclusivity and diversity, signaling a commitment to the voices of the Global South. Whether through Tagle's compassionate leadership, Parolin's diplomatic strategy, or Turkson's advocacy for justice, the next pope will determine whether the Church can successfully address our time's spiritual, social, and political issues. Yet out of the three contenders, Tagle and Turkson stand out as members of the Global South. He is part of a movement that will leave you inspired. Global South Rising. In recent decades, the Catholic Church has experienced a significant transformation, with its demographic heart shifting toward the Global South. Africa, Asia, and Latin America now account for most of the world's Catholic population. This means the Church's global influence and priorities will change. The Global South has seen exponential growth in Catholic populations, unlike with declining numbers in Europe and North America. In 2023, statistics indicated that over 60% of Catholics resided in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. This trend demonstrates the population makeup of the Church, with Africa boasting the fastest-growing Catholic community.
Africa's growing importance for the Catholic Church in the coming decades comes down to two major factors. First, the conversion of sub-Saharan Africa at the start of the 20th century is bearing fruits. Secondly, the growth of Africa's population in the 21st century.
Countries like Nigeria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the Philippines have emerged as strongholds of Catholic faith, fueled by high birth rates and vibrant missionary activities. In contrast, Europe faces a shrinking Catholic base due to secularization, aging populations, and declining church attendance. This demographic shift signifies a redistribution of influence, with the Global South set to take over. Catholicism in the Global South is interesting. For instance, The Church blends traditional practices with Christian teachings in Africa, creating a faith experience like no other. Liturgies often incorporate local music, dance, and languages, reflecting the cultural heritage of the African region. This approach has contributed to the Church's popularity. Similarly, in Asia, especially in countries like the Philippines, Catholicism has become a cornerstone of national identity, celebrated through festivals like Sinulog and Simbang Gabi. In India, Catholicism coexists with Hindu, Muslim, and Buddhist communities, promoting interfaith dialogue and understanding. The rise of the Global South has also been accompanied by an increase in vocations to the priesthood and religious life. Africa and Asia now account for many new seminarians and religious sisters. This influx of vocations addresses the clergy shortage in Western nations.
I see that we have more female priests, and we also see the theology students. They're starting their theology studies. A majority, like more than 80% of them, are female.
And positions these regions as key contributors to the Church's leadership. Prominent figures like Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle from the Philippines and Cardinal Peter Turkson from Ghana show the growing influence of the Global South in the College of Cardinals. Despite its growth, the Church in the Global South also faces some challenges. Poverty, political instability, and religious persecution threaten the safety and freedom of many Catholic communities. In countries like Nigeria, attacks on churches and clergy have raised concerns about the Church's ability to provide spiritual and material support to its followers. Additionally, the Church must address tensions between traditional values and modern societal changes. Issues such as gender roles, the rights of gender minorities, and reproductive health often clash with local cultural norms. But these challenges also present opportunities for the Church to demonstrate resilience and adaptability. Addressing social and economic inequalities, the Church can strengthen its role as a moral and unifying force in the Global South. Catholic programs focused on education, healthcare, and community development have transformed the Global South. According to experts, the increasing representation of African, Asian, and Latin American clergy in the Vatican also leads to decentralized decision-making. Pope Francis, the first pontiff from Latin America, has contributed to the issues relevant to the Global South, such as climate change, migration, and economic inequality. This shift will also change the Church's global agenda. Initiatives like the Amazon Synod and the Synod on Synodality show that the Church is making efforts directed exclusively at the Global South.
Pope Francis joined Amazonian church workers and indigenous people on October 4th to plant a tree in the Vatican gardens. The event marked the feast of St. Francis of Assisi. He also consecrated the Synod for the Amazon to St. Francis. The Synod will be held at the Vatican from October 6th through October 27th.
It is also important to mention the lay Catholics in the Global South. The laity actively contributes to evangelization and community building, from grassroots movements to parish ministries. Women in particular have emerged as leaders in education, healthcare, and social services, often filling gaps left by a shortage of clergy. But no other Catholic arm in the Global South has demonstrated more strength than the youths. We are about to reveal something special. You don't want to miss it. Young Catholics in Africa, Asia, and Latin America are demonstrating a strong commitment to their faith. They have actively participated in events like World Youth Day, providing them a platform to engage with global Catholicism, ensuring that the Church remains vibrant and relevant for future generations. The next pope is likely to emerge from the College of Cardinals with the highest representation from the Global South. He will inherit a church at a crossroads. Balancing tradition with innovation, The new pontiff must embrace the energy and vision of these youth communities while addressing the universal needs of the Church. We mentioned earlier that the next pope will inherit some challenges. Let us examine that up close. Emerging challenges for the next pope. The Catholic Church is at a crossroads, facing unprecedented challenges that will demand decisive leadership from its next pope. With shifting demographic shifts, the Church also faces external pressures and internal crises that threaten its moral authority and unity, addressing the crisis of credibility. The most critical challenge is still the abuse scandal. According to Church historians, this scandal has eroded the credibility and trust of the Church worldwide. Although Pope Francis has implemented reforms, many victims and observers argue that these measures are insufficient. The next pope must intensify efforts to ensure transparency, hold clergy accountable, and provide justice for survivors.
The number of potential future popes continues to grow as 21 new names have been added to the Catholic Church's most exclusive club.
Experts agree that rebuilding the lost trust involves more than policy changes. It requires a cultural shift within the Church's leadership. Hierarchical secrecy and offender protection have worsened the Church's public image. The next pontiff will need to prioritize pastoral care, ensuring that the Church is a place of healing for victims while restoring its moral authority. Establishing independent investigative bodies and adopting zero-tolerance policies for abuse will be necessary to rebuild confidence. Another trouble that lies ahead is the global polarization of the Church. Political divisions, particularly in regions like the United States and Europe, often seep into religious communities, creating factions within the Catholic faithful. Conservative and progressive camps frequently clash over issues such as abortion, gender minority rights, and gender equality, threatening the Church's unity. The next pope must find ways to bridge these divides through dialogue and the universal nature of Catholicism. By creating spaces for mutual understanding and compassion, the Church can serve as a model for reconciliation in a fractured world. Leadership that goes beyond ideological biases will be critical, ensuring that the Church remains a unifying force rather than a battleground for political disputes. We are about to reveal the most important of the Church's problems, which is not what you think. The biggest problem facing Christianity as a whole is youth disengagement from organized religion. In many parts of the world, particularly in Western societies, younger generations perceive the Church as outdated, irrelevant, or out of touch with their realities. The Church's stance on social justice, climate change, and human rights has been widely criticized. To re-engage with youth, the next pope must adopt a proactive approach, addressing their concerns and involving them in the Church's mission. Modernizing communication strategies, using social media effectively, and embracing contemporary forms of evangelization will be essential. A renewed focus on inclusivity, environmental stewardship, and advocacy for marginalized communities can resonate with younger Catholics and inspire their active participation in church life. The tension between tradition and reform has long been a defining characteristic of the Catholic Church.
The last time Catholics and Orthodox celebrated Easter together was in 1054. That year was marked by the schism that split the Church in two, East and West.
As the Church adapts to contemporary challenges, it risks alienating those who view change as a departure from core doctrines. Conversely, maintaining strict adherence to tradition can alienate those seeking a more progressive and inclusive Church. The next pope will need to manage this sensitive balance, ensuring that reform efforts are grounded in Catholic teaching while addressing the evolving needs of the faithful. Issues such as the ordination of women, celibacy for priests, and greater lay participation in decision-making are likely to remain at the forefront of discussions. Demonstrating openness to dialogue while maintaining doctrinal integrity will foster unity and renewal. Pope Francis paid a lot of attention to interfaith dialogue. He worked hard to improve the Church's relationship with Islam, Judaism, and other faith traditions. The next pope must continue this work, addressing global challenges such as religious extremism, persecution, and the refugee crisis through collaborative efforts. The Church can play a major part in promoting peace and cooperation among global communities by promoting mutual understanding and solidarity. Another critical problem the Church must address is poverty and environmental sustainability. Environmental degradation and economic inequality are critical issues affecting millions of Catholics, particularly in the Global South. Pope Francis's encyclical Laudato Si' was a turning point in the Church's engagement with ecological concerns, calling for urgent action to combat climate change and protect vulnerable communities. The next pope must build on this momentum, advocating for policies that promote environmental sustainability and social justice. Thank you for staying with us. Which of the three candidates is most likely to become the next pope? Share your opinions with us in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the following video on your screen and you will enjoy it.